Now, when it comes to the Super Mario series, the levels are set in a lot of different locations. For example, jungles, beaches, and more. And there's one type of level that has the biggest impact of them all, underwater levels. And that's because the games become very different thanks to them. All of a sudden you're swimming around instead of running and jumping. And as you can imagine, in such levels, enemies can come from all sides and Mario's moves are quite slow. And even when water is below you, things change in the level. And throughout the years, Nintendo has been adding more and more to such levels. And one good example is the PORCUPUFFER. And today we will look into this enemy to see how it evolved in terms of gameplay, story, use, and design. Now let's dive right in. The Porcupuffers. This is a species of large colored Cheep Cheep that we first saw in Super Mario World. Now, as you can imagine, they look a lot like Cheep Cheeps, and their faces are nearly identical to those of the Boss Basses and Cheep Chomps. And in the very first game they were seen in, they mostly follow you around in the water. And that's kind of it. And all you can do is spin jump on top of them to avoid them, or even ride them across the water. Now in the game they appear in 3 levels. The third secret level on top of the Vanilla Dome, a secret area in the Cookie Mountain level, and a hidden area within Chocolate Island 1. And unlike the floating mines seen in the game, they are vulnerable to fireballs and cape swipes. So you can't take them out. Now in this game, this enemy has one simple role: annoying you while you're trying to cross a body of water. They will just swim right below you and will constantly try to get you. So if you fall down, you will take damage by either falling on their spikes, or they will get you right after you fall in. Clearly their tactics are quite simple. They will wait for you to make a mistake, and they will certainly take advantage of it when it happens. And overall, that increases the stakes a bit when playing these levels. Because one slip up, and you will pay the price. Because as soon as you slip up once, you will pay the price, creating a good amount of tension when going through these levels. And because of that, I quite like them. Although I will say that there were other enemies in previous games that did the exact same thing. So it wasn't original or something. For example, the Boss Basses, who also swim on the surface of the water, and when Mario gets too close, they lunge out of the water to eat him. So yeah, what the Porcupuffer did in Super Mario World wasn't too special, sadly enough. And after this, they would actually disappear for an incredibly long time. But that was also the case because they didn't really make any 2D games anymore for a while. And after their long absence, the Porcupuffers are featured once again in New Super Mario Bros. Wii. And here they attack exactly the same as the Spike Bass in the previous game. They swim near the surface to pursue you, and even leap out from the water to attack you. And they can only be defeated with a fireball, star, or Koopa shell. However, you won't be able to celebrate your victory for very long, because another one will come to take its place several seconds later. So to be honest, he didn't change too much. All that's different now is that he can jump, and he will keep on coming back. So he still annoys you in certain levels where he guards the surface of the water, and if you fall in or get too close, it will come for you. However, that's not gonna be enough, to be honest. While they were still fun, things were getting incredibly stale at this point. They really needed to do something else with this enemy, or it would just be one of the many waterline defenders, just like the others I mentioned earlier from Super Mario Bros. 3 and the first New Super Mario Bros. Game. And luckily enough, they did something about this, and actually put the Porcupuffer in a new role. Although I will say it's a bit weird compared to what we saw previously. Now they were seen once again in Super Mario 3D Land, which isn't actually a 2D title, but more a linear 3D game. And in this game, they are seen in only 2 types of levels: underwater and beach levels. And while they retain their appearance from New Super Mario Bros. Wii, their strategy is actually incredibly different. In this game, they won't hunt you down on the surface of the water like they did before. Instead, they will do something that's a lot easier to avoid. They will swim back and forth while underwater. While in World 6-1, they jump out of the water in specific locations, attempting to hurt Mario. And they may even break some portions of the bridge that he's using to reach the end of the level. Aside from the bridge breaking, these behaviors are shared by this game's Cheep Cheeps as well, making them functionally similar to a big Cheep Cheep in this game, although they have spikes, which makes them sort of different, I guess. So while they have some new abilities, they kind of went backwards in a way. They are just too similar to normal Cheep Cheeps. You especially see this in the game when you encounter them back to back. The difference between them is quite small, and while it is something new for once, it's not really an improvement over what we saw in the previous 2D games. Well, that's the case when we are talking about the normal swimming around. The jumping and breaking bridges is a lot more interesting and fun in my opinion. To be honest, it reminds me a lot of the tactics the Porcupuffers had in games like Super Mario World. However, now that it's in 3D, they had to change something, or it would be way too similar to the version seen in New Super Mario Bros. Wii. And so this time, it jumps towards the screen, or from the left or right, trying to knock you off a bridge or tightrope. And personally, I find this concept quite fun. And I especially like the fact that they can also break certain parts of a bridge. But sadly enough, Nintendo did make it all too easy in this game. You can quite easily see which parts are gonna get destroyed, and both the Cheep Cheeps and Porcupuffers don't move very fast when jumping. So while the new idea is cool and had a lot of potential, they made it way too easy, making these sections less tense and challenging than they could have been. And personally, I'm quite sad Nintendo did this, because to be honest, they could have turned these sections into amazing fast-paced platforming wonders. But hey, none of that happened. So what is next? What did Nintendo do with them in the very next game? Well, something that's a bit strange. In the very next title, they went back to their previous tactics. So that means they will once again swim on the surface, and they will try their hardest to attack Mario, who's walking or jumping above them. Which is a bit lame, because like I said before, their role in the games was getting a bit boring. But hey, knowing Nintendo, this is nothing new. If something works in their eyes, they won't experiment with it anymore. This is especially the case in the New Super Mario Bros. Series. Here they took less and less risks as time went on. Now they are seen in New Super Mario Bros. 2 and New Super Mario Bros. U, appearing in a number of levels, but not a whole lot of them. So nothing too special to be honest. And this was also the case in the next 3D game, Super Mario 3D World. Here they behave the same way they do in Super Mario 3D Land, and only appear in one level, Pipeline Lagoon. So here Nintendo didn't really innovate once again, which is a bit sad because they could have done more with them. And you know what's the worst about all of this? In that one level, there are no bridges at all. So that whole concept is completely gone. Now they are basically the same as the Cheep Cheep when it comes to their behavior. But luckily enough, the next game in line actually did more interesting things with this enemy. I'm of course talking about Super Mario Maker 2, where they can be placed in almost any level. Well, almost. Because funny enough, despite debuting in Super Mario World, they are exclusive to the Super Mario 3D World style. And personally, I have no idea at all why that's the case. It makes no sense. In this game, they will actively pursue Mario and attempt to eat him like a cheap chomp. And in non-underwater themes, they act like a slow boss bass, briefly hovering at their jump's peaks if they are given wings. Now it takes 4 fireballs to defeat them, and there's one quite special thing that you can see when you hit them with these projectiles. Because after hitting one with a fireball, it will darken, puff up slightly, and it will no longer try to eat you, although it will still pursue you. And it becomes even weirder, because each fireball afterwards makes it more red and swollen until it pops, like a balloon. And once that happens, it will not be replaced by another. Aside from that, a Porcupuffer will catch fire if submerged in lava, therefore becoming immune to stomps and fireballs. Now clearly Nintendo didn't add a whole lot to this enemy, only some small things here and there, but nothing too big. However, personally, I quite like these small changes. First of all, they aren't just weak Cheep Cheep clones anymore. They are back to their old tricks and more, and are therefore a bigger threat in the game, just like they were in titles titles like Super Mario World. So hey, that's at least a good thing. And aside from that, I also like the new gimmick with the fireballs. It's something I never expected from Nintendo, and that's also because it's a bit odd, of course. There aren't any other enemies in the game that do a similar thing after all. But now we've finally reached the end of our journey. They weren't seen in a game like Super Mario Odyssey after all, and we haven't gotten anything new in ages. But now that Super Mario 3D World will make a return as a port on the Nintendo Switch, we will probably see them again pretty soon. And who knows what we will see next. And before you go, be sure to hit the subscribe button, click that bell so you won't miss anything, and leave a like and a comment. It really helps me out.